I want to show you the aspects that we went through the last time of, my screen is different. Hold on. There we go. Here's the image that we put together last time, which was a panorama. This is strictly the combined panorama shot. We then worked on the image a little bit to give some color, some darkening of the foreground and the upperground. So that was the first level of enhancements. The second thing was to give it even a little bit more color in the image. And the point I made, and I will make it again today and you'll see why, before you intend to, or before you change an image to a black and white, bring it up to the full enhancement that you want for the image. Don't change it to black and white as soon as you've made the panorama or a single shot and then turn it to black and white. Do all of your changes and your enhancements in the image. And this was the final before we changed it to a black and white, and that became the black and white.
Beautiful.
It went from here, we removed this post, went from there to there, which was some changes. And then it's just a matter of how much do you like on saturation. I tend to like saturation. And in relation to a black and white, it really does give more tonal range when you have this amount more of the color in the image. So then we went to that as the black and white. So I want to show you something today related to the images that I sent, and you can work on them with me if you have them, that I sent to you, and you can work along with me. But I want to show you what I did. But before I do that, I have a very good friend, Michael Belk. And Michael sent me this image first. You see it with myself and Lynn and some others. This is the black and white. I sent that, said, here's the challenge, Michael, and he sent it back and he put the three of us in there. So this morning I sent back to him, are you seeing it, by the way, are you seeing this image?
Yes.
Yes. So I sent back to him and I said, send me the TIFF image with the layers so that I can put all of us into the pond. And he sent it back this way. He put us in there and he even put the reflection in the pond of us standing in the pond. Thought it was very creative.
Wow.
The reflections are great.
Okay, we will start with the first image. We'll start with the college because there are a number of things of that I want to point out. And I'm bringing them in to Photoshop before I do the panorama merge. You can do it directly in Adobe Camera Raw, or you can simply go up to open and open the images in, I'm sorry, you can go to File, Automate, Photo Merge, and enter, bring in the images that way. But before I do it that way, see here, and I always do reposition, and you could just open images, but I want to open them ahead so I know which ones I have, and then say, add the open files. So I'm doing that in order to create the panorama. I'll do it again. I have the three images open. I'm making sure I have the ones that I want. Yes, good. And you notice that, hopefully you notice that they all are the same exposure. I did not shoot this on a tripod. I shot this handheld, and you'll see some differences as we go through, but it will line them up very well. So I go bring the three images in, or how many ever there are. Then you go to File, Automate, Photo Merge. Reposition, I start with that. If I need to do one of these other ways of bringing in the images, I will then try it, cancel it, go back and do it again. But in this case, they're lined up fairly well. So reposition does a very good job. And by default, blend images together down here at the bottom of the screen here. So I have the three there and I say, please put them together. And you'll notice over in the layers palette, it's doing the work and brings in the various layers and decides which part of each layer should be merged with the other. That is what it's doing. When it's finished, as it is now, we'll close the 3, or how many ever you had, close those. I have this one, and before I work on it, I would go to Save As and put in the numbers of the 3 images so that I know what 3 images were combined to make this panorama. That's what I would name it. I wouldn't keep it untitled panorama. I would Save As, and I don't remember what the numbers are, but I would put the 3 numbers in there so I know which ones they are. Also, we go to Layer, Flatten Image, so that it is a single layer in my palette. And in the 1, 2, 3, 4th tool down in the toolbar, the magic wand. And the magic wand can have, up in the options bar, you can have contiguous or not. If you turn off contiguous and then you place the magic wand, it will find that color and find it all the way through the image. It would find it in some of the buildings and things like that. I don't want that. So I keep contiguous turned on, which says it will only look for those pixels that are within a contiguous area. But I'd like to select this lower right one also. So if I hold the Shift key and click down there, it will add that to it at the same time. You could do them one at a time, or you can do both. And what I want to do is fill in the details. So I would edit, content aware, fill. Whoop.
Whoops.
That didn't work, did it? Turn off the lock on the background layer. Edit, fill, content aware. That's what I want. And it will match all the pixels in those areas to the pixels around it and fill those in very nicely. Then select, deselect. So now I have the image the way I want it to be. However, I would want to straighten a few things. The pond, because I'm standing and in front of the pond a little low, you see that's bulged here in the center. So I would select all, edit, transform, distort. Hold the Shift key down, grab the lower right corner and bring it down some. So I will try to straighten that pond and bring down the other side, the left side, straighten it as much as I can this way. Come up and click the check mark to accept it. Select, deselect. Select all for another time, but this time, edit, transform, warp. And in the warp up at the top, I have 4x4 set. You can have default 3x3, 4x4. 4x4 gives me all these little handles that I can use. I'll take the lower right corner and bring it down a little bit. Whoop. Bring down the one next to it to the left. So I'll try to straighten this a little bit. Come over to the left side and do the same thing. As much as I can by doing this. And I could even do more, but that's pretty good. So click the check mark, select, deselect, to remove the dancing ants. I have the image the way I want to have it. I talked about in the opening is to really do all of your enhancements on your color image before you change it to a black and white. Let me show you the difference. Here, go up to image, adjustments, and I'll just do a straight black and white this way. And even modifying the image by taking some of the sliders and see if I can adjust any of the tones within the image. Really doesn't do a lot very much this way. So I tend not to do anything until I really enhance the image the way that I want it to be. And in this case, I would like more emphasis and drama in the sky. So I will take it into Adobe Camera Raw. Take the dehaze slider. I love that slider. And just move it to the right. Look at the drama I'm now getting in the sky.
Yep.
Now also, we'll come down and unfortunately, the dehaze slider tends to turn the blue into a sort of a teal blue. So I will click on hue. I'm in the color mixer. Click on hue rather than saturation or luminance. Over here in the right corner is the targeted adjustment tool. So if I click on that and come over and put it in the blue, hold down my mouse button and move it to the right a little bit, I get back to a true blue of what I want for that sky. The other thing I can do, which is very interesting with this, is since I have that control, I can click on luminance, put it in the blue and move it to the left if I want to darken that color or lighten it. Now I want to just darken that sky. It will change the blue throughout the entire image. So now I have the sky. Look at the difference of how that stands out. And I made a point a number of times, especially in the Ansel Adams presentation, because he had such an influence on me that if you want something to be three-dimensional, have something light against dark or dark against light. And that is happening within this image with this building on the right against the sky, but this building in the center here. But I can additionally enhance the images, enhance this image. I've mentioned often, and Ansel does this all the time, is to take the burn tool, put it on midtones, and darken the foreground a little bit, just to push the eye into the center of the image. Now I'll even come in here a little bit, darken this building on the left, darken the sky a little bit in that area, darken the building on the right, darken the grass on the right a little bit, make my brush a little bigger, and darken the sky in that corner, and then in the left corner, over here on the building, over here. Another thing that I've learned about using the burn tool is you can actually create contrast only where you are burning if you change it to shadows, because it will then only darken the darkest pixels, not the midtones. And I want to just darken the darkest pixels in the water to bring it out more three-dimensional. Then come back with the dodge tool and lighten on highlights, lighten the reflection in the water, lighten the building in the background, because that's where I want your eye to go. Lighten it a little bit more. Oh, that's a little too much, back off. Lighten that building back there and the ones next to it. You see I brought out some detail in the shadow area on the right, another one of Ansel Adams' requirements. I think I'll darken this building on the left a little bit more so that that highlight in the center stands out, and this one. Now we're getting close to what I would want as the image to take it into a black and white and do a black and white. So I now enhanced it. Let's look at our history from where we were here. Whoop, no, that's not where we were. Here we are. had things filled in. So here's where we are, having the image put together as a panorama. Well, look at the range of contrast and where I will go when I bring in what the enhancements we just completed. It's almost an entirely different image.
Wow.
So let's look at that again, because it's so important to see the aspects of enhancing the image before you take it into black and white. From here, now that's the image I want to make as a black and white. It certainly is a nice color image also. So let me do that. I will duplicate the image just to be able to compare the color and the black and white. So I'm taking the layer, moving it down to the bottom of the layers palette. The second from the right duplicates the layer. I will take that layer into Silver Effects Pro. And here it is, just natural. And you can click on each of these enhancements to see. My favorite is number 5. You'll see in a minute. Here's number 5. Does a really good job of turning that into a black and white. And then I have all the sliders over on the right-hand side where I can additionally make some subtle changes. I will do highlights by just lowering the highlights a little bit.
John, are you doing that with a feature in Photoshop, or is that a plugin?
This is a plugin. Nick Collection
Nick?
is a plugin now owned by DxO, but I'm using the package that was there before. This is the free package. It's not offered free anymore. You need to buy it, but if you go to dxo.com, you can download the older version. Of course, they want you to upgrade to their newer version, but it works perfectly fine for me, so I just have stayed with the free version.
Now, why do you use Nick? Or I guess my question is, why not just use the adjustment features that's part of Photoshop?
Because it doesn't handle all the tonal ranges and tonal values as well as Nick Silver Effects Pro 2. You don't get the subtleties of the tones that you would get by using this piece of software. And I'll show you what I mean by that related to tones when I show you some of the images. In fact, as this one comes back, I'll show you that taking an image that's color and making it a black and white isn't just changing those colors to grays and blacks and so on, because some colors, if you had a certain tone of red of something and it was overlaying some tonal range of blue, a tonal blue about the same intensity, when you convert it to black and white, they become the same tone of dark gray and they merge together. I've noticed that Silver Effects handles those really well and keeps the separation of the tones.
John, excuse me.
Yes?
John, in the top of the picture, about 10, well, there's a vertical white line that was in the color image originally.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
Yeah, my eye keeps going there to do
I'll remove
fill.
that. I'll remove that. Also, I wanted to say that over here in this package, you can have various ways of modifying it with filters, but also you can scroll down here to various toning capabilities. So if I open the toning, I can come in here I can vignette, I can tone it to various strengths. Very creative aspect of this package. So let me leave that for right now to take this back to comparing it to the color image and the black and white.
Is the newer version, John, of Silver Effects Pro just as good or
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. Yes. So look at the detail in the shadow area here on the side of this building. Good detail in the highlight areas, the good texture in the clouds, all the grass. And if I want to do some final adjustments, I could take the dodge tool on midtones. Before I do that, let me get that little highlight out of there. I'll use the spot healing brush, come over and get that out. There we go. Get the dodge tool on midtones, zoom in to the bushes, and you can see there's detail because when I shot it, even though the somewhat of a contrasty day, not heavy, I looked at the histogram to be sure I had detail in all the shadow areas. You can carry this to an extreme, which sometimes I do in relation to making sure that I have detail everywhere, because that was pounded into my head by John Sexton, who was Ansel's assistant for many years. And I've worked with John in understanding the subtleties of black and white. So we do that back here a little bit on the side of the church. Now there's the black and white final. Let's look at the color image. The black and white.
John, now you waited until you had the image merged. Is there ever a circumstance where you would want to do the enhancements on the individual prints before you merged them?
I wouldn't do it for this reason. You could end up having the tones, and I keep using that word tones because we are only dealing with the lightness and darkness of from black to white. So if you did it to say one of the three images and they didn't match entirely to the tonal values that we're putting in the other image, you could end up with a mix of things when you get the black and white.
Okay, thank you.
So it's better to work on the final image.
Okay.
Let me save this. I'll send this to you all so that you can have it as a reference if you would like as you work on things at home. And I'll send it as a TIFF so you can see the various layers.
John, could you step us through that distortion maneuver that you did with the pool again? So I want to make sure I have that properly recorded.
Yeah, sure.
In my notes here.
Also, when you're saving something, make sure you are saving it exactly to the correct folder. Sometimes I'm saving something and it should always go back to the folder from which it brought the image in. But I usually make sure that's where I'm going. Okay, let me back up to the front and I will show you that technique. And it gets very tricky, but you'll get used to it. You will learn how to handle those aspects. Okay. So first of all, I did a select all, edit, transform, distort, grabbed the lower right and brought it down, grabbed the lower left and brought it down. I probably could do it with the warp also, but keeping it as simple as I can in the first part, just do that. Accept that, remove the dancing ants, select them all again, come back to edit, transform warp this time. And warp gives me many handles. If I, up in the option bar, the default are only these handles, which probably could work. Let's try it. Move this one down, the right-hand side down, to try to straighten that out a little bit. Move the left side down, straighten it. And that's how I did it.
All right, so basically the distort and the warp are pretty identical functions. It's just that you have different handles, so to speak, that you can get a
That's
hold of
correct.
between the two.
That's correct. Yes. And the warp allows you to, good point. Let me emphasize even more. If I select all, come to edit, transform warp, warp allows me to adjust a quadrant of the image rather than the whole image. When I did the distort, it changed the whole image. It adjusted the upper part as everything. But here, it will affect only the quadrant I'm dealing with here. In fact, look at the left side. I'll straighten that building. You see it's straightening the top of that building without touching at all.
Oh, yeah,
the
okay.
arch. So I get to change. Now you could even go into the center ones and move things around. I think we wouldn't want to do it in this one.
I'm
but-
going to stop the video
Okay.
so nobody
Pardon?
can see you on your laptop. But no, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
So you can, with warp, change things around. One of the things I've done before many times is go to, I shouldn't give you all my secrets, go to edit, transform, warp, and I want the sky to have more something to it. So I can actually change the clouds, just the clouds, stretching those out a little bit more to
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do is add clouds.
bring in,
Oh, wow.
how's that? Watch the difference.
He's moving the clouds.
So you have the ability with warp to change things. And you notice this building on the right is a little bit slanted. So I would select all, edit, by boring somebody, transform, warp, and move this to the right, just to straighten that building a little bit. Move this one.
Hey, John, quick question.
Yes.
In my screen, I don't see the grid. How do I enable the grid?
What?
You don't see the grid when you do
Grid.
warp?
Yes, when I do the warp, I don't see the grid.
Let me see.
I see the dots around the picture, but I don't see the grid.
Up in the top in the options bar, you see where it says grid? You see that?
Yep.
You could have default, which only has around the sides. I have 4x4. When I click the 4x4, it gives me that grid.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. So we worked through the image and then did all of the changes to it, then made it a black and white. That I need to emphasize that for you. So let's go to the other one.